Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cinefanatics. My name is Robert Adams, and tonight, this is the Marquee. I am joined by my special guests. We've got Lego. How are you doing tonight, Lego?
I'm doing well on this hopefully not unlucky day.
Yeah, we'll see how well this works and how well everyone's opinions of our rankings go. Also joining us tonight is our special guest, Mr. Sean Chandler. How are you doing, sir? Ooh, still muted. There you go.
I am doing good and looking forward to talking movies way too much.
I'm going to call you out on that. I don't think it's possible to talk about movies too much, just saying.
Fair enough.
Yeah, always down for that. Everyone, thank you all for being here at the top of the show as we get started. Today is Friday the 13th, so therefore makes complete sense to rank the Friday the 13th movies. I've actually been waiting for a Friday the 13th to land for months now because I've been wanting to do this. I've been wanting to tier rank these, and I feel like just doing it on Friday the 13th is easily the biggest chance to do that. So
adds a little bit more fun to the mix.
Yeah, it is. I love it. As we get started real quick, y'all know the YouTube things. Y'all got any questions, comments, issues, complaints with our rankings? Streamlabs.com/Cinefanatics is a good way to get us to notice your issues or comments, complaints, stuff like that. That's a good way to do it. Also, Patreon.com/Cinefanatics. If you feel the need, if you think we're worthy of your support and you have the means to support us, please hop on the tier that is good for you. We got movie watch-alongs. We've got trivia hangouts every month, so yeah, hop on those tiers. A lot of fun over there. Also, let's see, what else do I got to plug at the beginning of the show? Again, we're doing all the Friday the 13th movies. There's 12 movies to go off of, so everyone sees what we're doing. Here's the 12 movies that we are doing tonight. We will be starting with the original OG Friday the 13th and working our way all the way up to the 2009 Friday the 13th remake. We're covering all the major movies, Freddy versus Jason, all of that's in there in fair game for tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's 12 movies in there. That means we need to know what the rules are. Johnny, do you got the rules for tonight?
Why, yes, Robert, thank you so much for passing it off to me and making it real simple for me tonight. 2 films per tier. It's 12 movies. Let's do the math. Also, quick question. How did you get Sean to get here? Did you give him a kidney or something? That's what everyone's wanting to know. Also, Lego. Why are you still coming here? Don't you know there's kidneys available?
Thanks, Johnny. Thank you for that. Just yeah. Anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Carl out here and let's get the marquee board up. Carl, hit it. There we go. There's the marquee board. So for those of y'all who may not be familiar with this concept, I know Sean Chandler does a lot of rankings on his channel. This is going to be a tier ranking. This is where we're going to take all these movies and organize them into 6 different tiers, with S being the top tier for like superb, and F being just like in grade school, not the grade that you want to get. That is essentially what we refer to as the F this movie. So they're all going to be placed in there. We're going to talk about these movies one at a time and see like where we want to rank them as a group. At the end of this, we will have one final moment to shuffle things around if we feel like anything else needs to be adjusted. So that's going to be it for how this works. We will start off with the very first movie in the entire series. The one that kicked it off would be the original 1980 Friday the 13th. And we will start with Mr. Sean Chandler.
Alrighty. Do you want me to tell you my placement or my thoughts on it first?
Yeah, either way, however you want to do it.
All right. It's kind of an interesting classic of the genre because it's such an important film, but it was also created as a Halloween knockoff with its kind of own twists on the formula and everything like that. It's interesting in the franchise because it's a Friday the 13th movie where Jason's not the killer. Jason barely in it in any sense. And so it's kind of an anomaly, and that's what makes it interesting. You got some great Tom Savini effects in there, a little bit of a whodunit. Also, rewatching it now, it feels a little bit dated. I'm going to put this one, because it's important, but doesn't necessarily hold the best up over time, putting it in B tier.
B tier. All right. And Lego.
I concur with the B tier. This is obviously very important to the franchise because this is what launched it, but ultimately it is and has been admitted by the creators, a Halloween knockoff. I do like the killer reveal. I love a good for her movie. So that stands up for being, for me, as one of the only films where we have a female killer who's killing because she's a mom who lost her son. Like, if you can't get behind that motivation, what can you get behind? It's like you think murder isn't good or something. I do like the Tom Savini effects, although, of course, he did get better as he went on through his career. I'm not saying The Burning's a better movie, but I'm not saying that either. And who doesn't love that iconic Kevin Bacon kill scene with the arrow? I mean, it's a fun movie. It's a fun watch. It almost has like a Jaws effect in terms of the music, how they're using it to like bring the people in. The first person POV kind of killer, very reminiscent of video games. It's a movie, but I think in the franchise there are just some ones that to me are more entertaining than this one.
Yep.
So B tier. Okay, so my ranking on this is a little weird. I am very prone to want to throw out the S on like the original, the one that got it started, and it's no different here. That being said, I completely agree with all of y'all, like the faults that y'all are saying some of this movie has, pacing wise, story wise. There was a lot of people that just really didn't like the reveal of Mrs. Voorhees being the killer at the end, because unlike most whodunits, you usually know who the characters at play are, and we weren't introduced to her until like that final like 10 minutes of the movie, and then poof, she's the bad guy.
Yeah, there's no way you could have pieced it together on your own.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're going into this really looking for a good whodunit where you as the audience member gets to play along with the questions and the clues and everything, it kind of doesn't help you very much in there. Unlike Scream, that did reference this as well at the beginning, very famously, was very good at being able to put those clues together that you could potentially guess who the killer was or killers by the end of the movie. I do think, like, again, kind of like what both of y'all said, this is like one of the biggest like originators of this kind of genre. There's a couple of movies that came before it, like Black Christmas or Bay of Blood, that kind of did the same thing. But this was really what cemented it and really set the groundwork for the entire Friday the 13th franchise. Which is easily like one of the biggest like franchises that when you think of horror movies, Friday the 13th is one of the biggest franchises that you immediately think without actually naming one. So I put it in S tier just because it's still that OG, the one that you respect for the whole thing. So we've got 2 Bs and an S. So that's going to put it probably at the end of A as far as the averaging out. And that's why I'm saying, like, at the end of this, we can shuffle these around again if we really do feel like, say, maybe this one does deserve to be a little bit lower. Even though I'm putting it S tier, I will definitely entertain conversations about that as we go on. Let's see. Moving on. Just looking at the comments as well. Yeah. Moving on, part 2, we're going to go to Lego.
Okay, so this is basically the first movie all over again, but with a much tighter plot, better pacing, better dialogue, I think more likable characters. Who doesn't love Paul Holt, Jenny Fields, and, you know, all the other names of the people who I'm sure had names that I don't remember. Mark was cool. He had a sad death. I think it was because he was wearing a red shirt. I think this is basically the first film, but better. I mean, it's not perfect still. It really, if you're watching the movies, I couldn't imagine being at the theater in 1981 and they reveal that Jason's been alive the whole time. It really does not make any sense. It completely doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever. And he's out there in a burlap sack looking like the dude from The Town Who Dreaded Sundown. I mean, it's okay. I just think it's just a little bit of a better version of the first one. I don't think it has anything that makes it elevated. It's just, you know, it's there. I would probably put it Also in B tier. I go back and forth with 2 and 3, so I'm pretty much going to say the same thing for 3.
Yeah.
I'll continue right there. I also put it in the B tier and would say kind of the same things. I lean more towards the first film because it did it first, but it's probably a little bit more efficient. Yeah, like you said, the pacing's better. It moves at a brisker pace. Doesn't kind of wander around as much as the original one with, like, why are we watching people play cards and clean rooms and stuff like that? Kill snakes. So slightly better version. Of course, the introduction of Jason Sweat has its own iconic moments, but it's kind of right there in the B tier, kind of in that same feeling for me. It still has a lot of faults and hasn't aged necessarily great.
And I agree with that. I also have it B tier. Just, I don't think the character development outside of, like kind of some of the characters that you said already with Paul Holt and Jenny. I'm trying to remember. This is also the one, that the comedian dude Ted, who looks like Linguini from Ratatouille, looks exactly like him in real life. I thought he was hilarious, but otherwise, this movie just, other than those characters, there's no other character development, so I don't care when these people get killed off. I think some of the kills were actually pretty decent without Tom Savini having a hand in this one. But the bag on the head was just the one hole for the eye. Even when I first watched it, I was like, there's no way he can see out of that. He's not going to be an effective killer. So I have it as B. It's all right. It's serviceable, but not my favorite go-to of the franchise. Let's see. We'll do part 3. So I'll start with part 3. This one, obviously, this one's going to get a lot of credit because this is where we first get the hockey mask. That's the main thing with this one. I like it that out of the 3 movies so far, this is really the one that feels like it's getting its footing. We're getting the understanding of the killer in a camp setting. So I do like that a lot more. Jason's a lot slower in this too. He's a much, stealthier. He doesn't move quite as well. He's very slow in his pacing. So it makes it kind of awkward because you don't think of a serial killer in a horror movie really moving that slow. Especially if you're talking about the whole thing when the person he's chasing is running and he's moving at a glacial pace chasing after them. I think other than that, I think this movie's okay in general. I just think say the 4th one is really what tops this. If it wasn't for that 4th one, this would probably be the best out of the original Jason series for the most part. I do have this also as a B. Sean.
All right. This feels to me kind of like Friday the 13th by the numbers. They know the formula. So we're kind of sending out more people to get killed by Jason, but they know what the formula is, so you get some fun kills in there. The movie plays kind of weird now because it was designed for 3D, so there's all these shots of stuff like this in the camera, and people throwing balls that it just looks like these ridiculous shots that has its own campy fun to it now that you're watching a movie that it absolutely does not translate anymore to the camera. But there's not a lot new or fresh here, but it doesn't do anything to embarrass the franchise either, the way that some movies just kind of went off the rails. So for me, I'd put this one in the C tier.
And Lego.
Right. I definitely agree that it's kind of like Friday the 13th by the numbers. I mean, we do get some new stuff in this, like Jason gets the hockey mask from the Joker kind of guy, Shelley. The 3D is very awkward because of all the movements and stuff they had to do for the camera. But then they give you that funky disco score, which kind of for all of it. And there's a lot of humor in this one and self-awareness that I personally really enjoy. I like Chris Higgins and her bland brunette love interest, which Friday the 13th as a franchise has so many of them. I really dislike the Jason performance in this one, though. This is definitely by far my least favorite Jason performance. I don't like the slow kind of lumbering Jason. It's very awkward to me. I don't think any of the kills are very memorable, but I really like the bikers. They were fun. And the stoners, they were very random and just fun to have them in. So overall, I think I have a lot more fun with 3 than I do 2, but I just go really back and forth where I place them. So I would also put part 3 in the B tier next to part 2.
That's actually where it's probably going to go. So we got 2 Bs and a C. Cool. All right, so going back to starting with Sean, part 4, the final chapter.
This is, I think, a significant step up from the previous 3 films as just a movie that feels like it has a more of a budget. It has a better director behind the camera that's trying to bring some actual, I don't want to like get pretentious or anything, but there's at least some filmmaking and cinema kind of going on here. And I mean, when you get one of the iconic characters in Tommy Jarvis, some nice casting with Crispin Glover showing up in the film and being as Crispin Glover as you'd expect him to be in the mid 80s with an incredible dance number, it just elevates it. It has the goofy fun, it has the kills, but it's just better characters, better overall. So I think easily this is the best of the original run for me. I put this one in the A tier.
Lego.
Totally agree. To me, this definitely belongs in A tier. The Crispin Glover dance alone. I mean, that scene's probably S tier.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
I really enjoy the inclusion of the Jarvis family and the introduction to Tommy Jarvis, who's clearly supposed to be Tom Savini, who they brought back to do the effects on these ones, so you know it looks good. I like that he's a little nerdy monster mask maker, and I think that's kind of unique in like the slasher franchise. I don't know if I like any of the characters in this movie, but they're all very fun to watch get killed. Although this movie doesn't have my favorite kills, it does have some good ones. Again, Tom Savini. I like the character of Rob, but I think a lot of people don't know that parts 2, 3, and 4 all take place over the same week.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't make sense that he found out his sister, who died in part 2, like 2 days ago. So he's already been notified, and he's there, and he's looking for Jason already. Like, he figured this out quick. What are the cops doing in this town? They suck.
So when I rewatched this a couple months back, the whole series, and I've been watching these movies since the early 90s, and I think it was the first time I really watched them and it's like that close together to be like, these movies all take place over a weekend. 2 of them aren't on Friday the 13th. And you go, oh, this doesn't make as much sense. Oh yeah, this franchise has always had some issues with making sense.
I think most all your major horror franchises, the continuity and the timelines just get so bad. I mean, Halloween, easily one of the most convoluted timelines of all horror. Yeah, sorry. It's all over the place. We've got like at least 2 sets of movies that reboot the timeline from some other point in time. It's so weird. But
but generally those movies take place the year they came out. Only 2 movies
on Halloween
in this franchise take place the year they came out.
Yeah. For the 4th one, this other than the first movie, again being like the OG, this is my other S tier. Yeah, I agree. This one, by the time we got to the 4th one, they knew what they were doing. They had a nice tight package for like how this franchise was going to go. And I know the original idea was going to be that this is the movie where we kill off Jason. We have a nice proper series finale, so to speak, and that there's no more need for Jason anymore. And I think it does. It really does that very well. If they actually did end it here and did not continue with the series, I could say that, yeah, the first 4 movies are done very well. So yeah, I agree. The whole thing with it happening over like the 3-day weekend or so, that's a little odd, but the effects are good. Everything with like Tommy Jarvis is, I like Corey Feldman. I thought he did really good at that in that position, that role. So, yeah, this is also a S tier for me. And so we start with Sean. What was yours, Lego?
A.
A.
Okay, so we got an S, A, and an S. So it's gonna go at the top of A. All right, so starting with Lego, we're going to go part 5, New Beginning.
Okay, so I know a lot of people don't like this one, but hear me out. This is fun. Okay, we bring back Tommy Jarvis. That makes sense. We're going back to Crystal Lake at Pinehurst, whatever, and people are trying to help him. We like to see it. But some kid gets murdered, and then his paramedic father, who apparently abandoned him but lives in the same town as him, and they both have the same last name, and no one thought that they were related. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Let's go with it. He wants revenge, just like Pamela Voorhees. It's nice, I guess. Honestly, I just think this movie's fun. It's so strange. The townspeople are weird. I don't have any defense of why I like it. It's just fun. It's ridiculous. The dad, I wonder who. He clearly wasn't the guy portraying Jason though, or like in the hockey mask, because that guy seemed a lot bigger.
Yeah,
like noticeably. It's just a fun little 80s movie. I don't get down on it because Jason's not the killer. Look, those damn enchiladas, that line had me. Come on. Who doesn't like it?
Oh, those damn enchiladas.
It's a C tier. It's just fun. It's not as bad as some of the other movies in this franchise.
That, and then him like sitting there singing a song with his girlfriend while he's in the porta potty or whatever, the outhouse. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby.
Gramps was fun.
Yeah, I agree. This movie is fun. Like some of the character development in there, specifically Demon, which is the guy with the enchiladas, Miguel A. Nunez Jr., who's phenomenal in like everything I've ever seen him in. He was also in was it Return of the Living Dead? He was basically the same exact character. Yeah, so same character in that movie. The other one I really liked out of this was Ethel, the little woman that lives out in the woods with like her son, and like just every time she opens her mouth, it's just like a stream of like curse words and just the most off the wall like sentences. Was it? She tells the cop like, "You can't arrest me. I got a bomb on me." It's so funny. Otherwise, like some of the characters, some of those characters stand out. Rest of it doesn't make sense. Like the kid who gets killed for the with the chocolate bar, and then come to find out he's the son of the. That doesn't make any sense. Like no, they even say like we haven't been able to find his father yet. His father has like a current picture of his son in his wallet. It makes no sense whatsoever. I do like the return to the whodunit. I love that, and I feel like this one is at least a little bit better because we've at least been introduced to the killer earlier in the movie. So we're already established that this person exists within the story, not like Mrs. Voorhees popping up at the very end. The thing is his character just really doesn't matter to this movie at all. It's so weird that he's the killer. So I do have this as a D. So, Sean.
I'm going to be the voice of reason. This is an F tier.
Really?
I don't get this one. Well, he told me I had to put ones in each of the. I had to put 2 movies in each category, so something has to be at the bottom. So I don't get it. I mean, the inciting incident is over a candy bar that leads to all these killings, and you get to the end of it. And I remember watching this movie one time, and they do the Scooby-Doo reveal, take the mask off, and I was like, "Who's that?" like I didn't remember who it was. They're talking like, "Wait, the guy at the beginning? What is going on here?" And then the Tommy Jarvis is like sweating all the time and staring at the mirror. I mean, I'll have my own ones that are indefensible picks that I'm going to use the same language you did. Like, it's just, I don't know why I love it, but I love this movie. I'm going to have a couple of those in the very near future. But, yeah, this one for me, I did get it.
Yeah, so F. And Lego, you had it, what letter?
C.
C. So C, D, and F. So it's going in D. I love it when it averages out that easily. Guys, those of y'all watching in the chat, y'all have any comments on where you think these would go as well? Also, I didn't mention at the top of the show, generally what we do is at the end of the show, if you want to submit your own rankings, it's 12 movies. So if you want to quickly rank them where you think it would go, again, two movies per tier, send those rankings in with the Streamlabs. We'll read them off at the end of the show. So after we've gone through and we've got our ranking finalized, we'll go and look over yours as well if you would like us to look over it. So streamlabs.com/cinefanatics, get those submitted. Let's see. So now that was what, part 5? So
Yes.
Moving on to part 6. Yeah, so real quick, I do see in the chat, Peter here is saying, where would you guys put the Never Hike Alone fan films? So I actually mentioned this before we went live on here, that there's a couple fan films that are regarded as canon. I don't have them on here as for us to rank. Maybe that might be something we do. We might revisit this later on another Friday the 13th, because it's bound to happen again.
Next one's in October.
Oh, really? That would have been also really good timing there. But we may revisit this and include some of the fan films as well, because I know some of those actually do have. We're about to talk about part 6. The actor who plays Tommy in part 6, I think is Tom Matthews, I believe, something like that. He was in a fan film playing Tommy, so that kind of lends some credence to it being potentially canon with the rest of the franchise. So we might look at that again, later on. Part 6. So let's see. We started New Beginning with Lego. Who did we start on that last one?
It should be you.
Okay. Oh yeah, because we're on 3s. Okay. Mm-hmm. So for part 6, that is going to be Jason Lives. This movie is, I feel like I pretty much agree. This is one of the best of the entire series. They got one of the more non-indie feeling. All the other movies up until this point still had that low budget feel. I feel like this is the one that they're this is going to play in all the cinemas nationwide, and we need to make this feel like an actual movie. I don't know what the tone difference is. The lighting may be different, something like that. All of that comes together to make an actual blockbuster looking film. And it definitely steps up how the audience interacts with it. I think the characters are all very nicely written. All of them I can't even name too many of them. The only downside that I have for this is the bringing back Jason. Sure, they killed him off in part 4. Part 5 was supposed to be another whodunit with another killer. And then I guess part 5's financials didn't work so well. So they were like, okay, we're just going to bring Jason back. Which, whenever you do that, it feels like it kind of negates the previous movies where they actually did, for all intents and purposes, kill Jason off. But I think they did a very good job with it. And I actually do like the idea of zombie Jason. It's kind of a fun little twist on it. So I have this one in A.
I'll cut to the chase. This is S tier for me. This is the one where I felt like they understood the movies that they were making. That, all right, we shouldn't take these too seriously. This is a pretty silly concept. And so they had fun with it. They deliver all the kills and the tension that you want. But it's also self-aware and has that subtle humor all throughout the entire film. But the other thing is that all the movies up to this point in time, the characters don't know that they're in a horror film until the third act. They're just out doing stuff that's not very interesting, going skinny dipping, doing drugs in each other, and playing board games, and then they get killed, and then you're in the third act. And in this one, they create a scenario where Tommy knows that he's in a Friday the 13th movie. He has an objective, he has a goal, and so it just makes for a story with more urgency, and you're invested in it. So it's just a better structured movie than the previous films. Like I said, with the tone, this is the one I think got it right. So for me, this is S tier.
And Lego.
100% agree. This is, for me, the best film in the franchise. I think for what makes this film so good is not just that they have 3 fantastic Alice Cooper songs, but they actually have the camp being open with children in it.
Yep.
Which really works. And that's something that they definitely
think, like, we're 6 movies in before that happens. And it's like, right, they're at a camp, put kids there.
They had it in the first one, but they only showed them like asleep in their cabins.
Yeah, I guess technically at the beginning. But yeah, and the kids, I thought, really elevated it. And that's something that they really could have dropped the ball on, because kids can kind of be annoying in horror movies, but they did such a great job with this. And they had so many like comedic moments, like the kids hiding under their beds from Jason. The one kid goes, "So what did you want to be when you grew up?" And the one little girl's reading like No Exit by Jean-Paul Sartre. And it's just like, this is ridiculous, and I love it. A couple run into Jason, who's standing in the middle of the road, and the woman's like, "I've seen enough horror movies to know any weirdo wearing a mask is never friendly." Like, it's so self-referential and fun. I don't know what this hospital did that the previous hospital Tommy was staying at didn't do, but like, they really worked with him a lot.
Yeah.
He came a long way in that year. He's still messed up and like Frankenstein's Jason back to life, but I think it's kind of fun and an ode to Universal horror movies. Someone recommended that if you can, to watch it in black and white, and apparently it looks really good like that. Kevin Williamson has even remarked that this movie really inspired him as a youth to write Scream, which I think you can kind of follow that through line with the kind of beginnings of self-referential humor in movies. Yeah, I really like this movie. And, I think the franchise needed one where Crazy Ralph was the main character, and Tommy was clearly Crazy Ralph in this movie. S tier. I
do like Tommy in the last one in part 5 is all like mopey and like easily angered, while this Tommy is more straightforward, get to the point, uses his hands and fists to get answers rather than just like staring at people. So
I will say the sheriff was like overly aggressive, like kind of weird.
Also, it was because like Tommy was seemingly like hitting on his daughter.
Well, the guy walked into the police station and the sheriff pulled a gun on him. That's not right. You at least let him talk first.
Is that not normal police procedure?
I would hope not.
All right, so we had 1 A and 2 S's, so we got ourselves an ass. It's going into S tier. So, and so I do see in the Streamlabs we did get PLD submitted his rankings. So thank you, sir. I will be reading those off a little bit later. But thank you for the Streamlabs, sir. So going to Lego, we're gonna go with Part 7, The New Blood.
I feel like people really hate this movie, and I love it. It's like, okay, this is definitely, you can very clearly tell this came out after Nightmare on Elm Street, and they put Carrie in the movie, essentially. I mean, this girl tries to resurrect her dead, like, decades-long dead father and accidentally brings Jason back to life, which totally
we've all been there. We've all done that.
Right? And then this is our first movie where we have Kane Hodder as Jason, who's probably my second favorite. This man is so willing to take a beating for a movie, and I wrote down everything that happened. He gets electrocuted, goes through a window, a roof collapses on him, he falls through the stairs, his mask crushes his face, he's hung, lit on fire, he has nails shot at him, and the house literally explodes before Tina resurrects her dead zombie father who drags him back into Crystal Lake. This is so fun, and it's got the doctor, Dr. Cruz, who's like her psychiatrist, who's just not helping her at all, and he's the evil doctor from Tammy and the T-Rex, and Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's, which is just additionally hilarious. This movie has two of my favorite kills from the entire franchise, wherein Jason picks up a girl in a sleeping bag and just whacks her against the tree. And then he throws an axe in a girl's head and then picks up her entire body and launches it across a room into a TV. I mean, this movie is ridiculous and so fun. I would put it in A tier. It's great.
Bold placement.
All right, everyone go ahead. Hate it.
I don't hate it, but I would say this one's kind of mid-tier for me. Just adding basically Carrie, who they didn't have the rights to, but adding someone with like the supernatural telekinetic powers, that's kind of like a jumping the shark
zombie.
Moment.
Come on.
Well, yeah. And that's what I was saying. That's why I said that in the last one, that making Jason a zombie, that's fine, but like let's keep the supernatural there. Bad enough we're about to start talking about his very abundant teleportation skills, especially in the next movie. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's fun with it. This is easily my favorite looking Jason. Like, if I could have gotten like the 1/6 scale figure of Jason from this movie, that's definitely what I would have gone to get instead of the one that's from like part 3. But yeah, I love the look. Everything that they did with this, I love Kane Hodder. I love the look of just Jason. But yeah, otherwise the story just for me. I have this as a C. Sean.
I put it in D tier. The novelty of Jason versus Carrie when you get to the third act, absolutely, yeah. Let's throw it way higher up on the list in that regard. But you have 2 acts before that with just really insufferable characters. The doctor, he's supposed to be the worst, but he really, really is the worst. And I think part of the problem with doing Carrie, but it's not Carrie, is that it's a character that's constantly an emotional breakdown. That if you're doing the movie Carrie that has all these kind of deep explorations, then that's compelling. But when you're putting it in a schlocky slasher film, then your lead character is just like in the corner crying all the time, and it's tough to connect with her. And so it just, before we get to our third act and she's pulling electricity and all that fun stuff, it's just not very watchable for me. I will say this. This movie is my earliest memories of Friday the 13th. Watching it on cable television after my parents went to bed, and Jason with the buzzsaw cutting up the doctor's stomach. That's my first earliest Friday the 13th memories as a little kid watching someone being brutally murdered.
So we got A, C, and D. Whew. So that would put it either at the bottom of B or the top of C, I believe. I believe that sounds about accurate. So probably put it at the top of C for right now. And again, we can move them around. Although Lego was very enthusiastic about this, so I kind of want to go back and watch it now.
When you get into the third act, I mean, it stands out. It does something interesting, whereas a lot of them kind of have that same formula of what they're doing. As soon as you have a girl that's crumbling buildings on his head, that's interesting. Even like the images of like when she snaps the mask on his head and there's ooze shooting out of it, there is some like memorable stuff in there.
Yeah. All right, so next one, I guess we're starting. This one's part 8, so to Lego. Jason Takes Manhattan.
F. And it's not because, and most people complain that he wasn't in Manhattan long enough. That is not my complaint at all about this movie. I'm perfectly fine with him sailing a ship. And that totally makes sense. I guess. to whoever wrote it. It's just, this movie is so dull. Like, the characters are very unlikable. I couldn't stand watching them. The setup is strange. I mean, they're all strange, but this one it's like a reverse Jaws, where a giant electrical cord underwater hits his chain that he's chained down to the lake, and it causes him to resurrect. And so he climbs aboard a boat, kills the people, climbs aboard a bigger boat, and apparently Crystal Lake connects to the ocean. And they sail to New York. There's a song in it that when I'm watching the movie, I'm like, the song's okay, but I can't remember any of the lyrics or how it sounds when I'm not actively listening to it. So it's not the best song. It's not He's Back Behind the Mask. It's no Friday the 13th Part 3 theme, right? It's okay. But this movie isn't even, it's so bad it's good. It's just bland. And I know with a lot of like the action scenes and the kills and stuff like that, the MPA really took stuff out of it. But even with the other films, which had the same problem, it was still interesting to watch. And this movie wasn't. The only thing that was interesting is, when did Jason learn to swim? Someone explain it to me.
You didn't like the end where toxic waste from New York City turns him back into a child?
Every night in New York City, the sewer system is flooded by toxic waste.
Oh, that's normal.
And then when he looks up and he sees the toxic waste, he vocally says, "Mommy?" in a child's voice, vomits water, and then gets covered in toxic waste. And then when they cut back to him, he is a child. I am confusion. And then they kept showing like the child version of Jason, but like they kept changing like what he looked like.
Yeah, there's like five different Jason looks in this one movie alone.
And also, why does anyone see child Jason? Is he a zombie and a ghost now? I just don't know what's happening in any of this film. And it's not in a way that I don't know what's happening and it's bad and I'm confused, but I'm laughing while I'm watching it. It's just this is very flat and it's very boring. So yeah, definitely an F tier movie for me.
I'll hop on there. I put it D. It is a little fun for me because there's just so much goofiness where they're killing someone with a guitar. Jason punches someone's head off. The guy punches him, and then Jason punches his head off. There's like some just ridiculously goofy kills in it. I mean, yeah, it's Jason takes a boat to Vancouver. It's a total waste of the concept. The premise makes absolutely no sense. But it's definitely not so bad. It's good, but it is for me so bad. There's a little bit of fun in here that it goes for it on some of these things. Even like that we're talking about, then toxic waste turns him back into a child. That's so dumb that it puts at least somewhat of a grin on my face, but still only D tier.
I think like what could potentially save this movie is some of the in between the duller parts of this movie hit fast forward a little. Like if you're able to watch this, like say on a computer where you can speed it up while still hearing them talk, and you can speed enough to still understand the conversations and get the gist of the scenes, just fast forward through those and get to the other parts, and I feel like this movie would play out a lot better. 3/4 of this movie, he's on a boat. He doesn't take Manhattan. There's one shot in this movie actually filmed in New York. The rest of it's all Vancouver. And like the only shot that they got is him standing in Times Square. Like I've never been to New York, but I'm at least familiar with the placement of Times Square, and I don't understand how he got off of a boat that, as y'all said, came from Crystal Lake that somehow is connected to a bay connected to the ocean, which I understand Crystal Lake is in New Jersey, so I feel like that's slightly plausible. I just don't know how the lake is actually connected to the ocean. But after all this trip, he just goes to Times Square. That's where he goes in New York. It's like, okay, it feels very fake.
It's super easy to find people in New York City.
Yeah. How many
right
people did
he
kill on the way from the boat to Times Square? He must have killed somebody. Why don't we get to see that? And then the other thing that I like in it that I've noticed on rewatches, the scene at the beginning in the credits with the junkies in the alleyway for like 5 minutes. We're sitting there watching these guys like shoot up drugs. Like, why?
Well, they did come back to that, but I wish they had given what they do.
Then they show them again later, still shooting up drugs. Like, just in case you didn't see enough of these guys earlier, here they are again. Yeah, this movie's a mess. Like I said, there's like five or six different looks for Jason throughout the course of this movie. It was hyped up. Like the idea, just the title alone, Jason Takes Manhattan. Hell yeah, I want to see that. I want to go to the theater. I want to see him leave a camp and just slaughter an entire city. That sounds fantastic. No, he's on a boat, teleporting around on the boat. Like, what was it? The scene with him in the disco room with Kelly Hu, he's teleporting from like wall to wall. Every time she turns her head, he's in a new spot. Like, and they never explain this. So yeah, I've got this F tier. I hate this movie. But yes, as you said, this movie does have moments that are so absurd that it is kind of funny. But yeah, in the ranking of this, I have to put it F. We've got 2 Fs and a D. That's going to lean it more towards the F tier. So next one is going to me. Is going to be Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. Once again, F tier. I can't stand this movie. Like, I would rather rewatch Jason Takes Manhattan than Jason Goes to Hell. First of all, Jason's in it for like 2 minutes, and the whole plot is him like possessing other people. And then there's this weird,
so he's in the whole movie.
But there's this weird subplot that it's like his family members are the ones that have to kill him once and for all. I feel like they were trying to get some kind of a familiar connection that they did like in Halloween, making Laurie the brother or the sister of Michael Myers. And then of course in the later movies of Nightmare on Elm Street, or at least the last Nightmare, Freddy's Dead, the final Nightmare, they did a familial connection between Freddy and his daughter as well. So I think that's what Jason Goes to Hell is trying to do here. And it's just so absurd and convoluted. Like, every time I've watched this movie, I feel like I have to draw out a family tree to figure out who's related and how they're related, because everyone's jumping around in their relation, and I can't stand it at all. Some of the kills are kind of inventive, and some of them are just like, yeah, I'm not a fan of this movie. F.
Have either of you watched the special features and the interviews with the director about this movie?
I've seen some. Like, he's very adamant about defending his movie.
He's so energetic that when I was watching it, he was almost like convincing me that this was a good movie. And he's like, well, we need to find a way to pull together all the mythology to explain how is he able to come back to life. I've always been a big fan of the Evil Dead movies, so what if we brought in the Necronomicon, and the Voorhees family actually had the Necronomicon, and they'd been reading it, and that's where Pamela Voorhees brought her son back to life. He actually is a Deadite. That's what's going on in these movies. It's like, oh, that's kind of interesting. It's like, wait a minute. What are you talking about? You just invented a bunch of nonsense. What? Have you seen this movie? And then, like, his soul's passing around, and there's people eating hearts. I mean, it's just baffling. And then there's some things that are kind of interesting, like was it Duke character that's
Creighton Duke.
That's trying to hunt down Jason, and there's like an idea of what if there was a bounty hunter that was trying to stop him as the serial killer, and the idea that people are aware of Jason's existence. That's interesting. What do they do with that? Not much. And once you get on the special features, they said they had a whole bunch of other stuff with the character that got cut. It's just this bizarre movie. It's the whole franchise is pretty bizarre, and the mythology always changes. This one is way out to lunch with literally the Necronomicon, magic daggers, sisters, is everything just being made up. And as enthusiastic as the director is about this movie, F.
I think if you argued with the director, I saw one thing where he's his response to any arguments is like, well, I made a Friday the 13th movie. I put it in a Friday the 13th movie.
Yes.
This is canon now. Deal with it. And like, I just wish I could answer anytime someone has like any kind of issue with anything I say. I wish that would be my response. Well, I said it and it exists now, so deal with it. Like, no. Lego.
Yeah, I also put this movie in F. We have, this is the first film that is part of the New Line films, so they've taken over from Paramount. And I think they just didn't like Jason. And so they just completely dropped the ball. They dropped the mask. They dropped all of the things. They were trying to make Night of the Creeps. I don't know what was happening in this film. I like everyone. I love Stephen Williams. I like him in everything he's ever played. But Creighton Duke was a really great idea, and I'm very sad that he was kind of wasted. And by kind of, I mean completely. I don't understand the whole Jason has a sister thing, especially considering the director considers her to be Pamela's daughter. I just don't understand like the time-wise how that worked. I don't like Steve as a character, just annoying dude. And I don't understand why it's focused on him rather than Jason's niece. That didn't make sense. I know Steve was supposed to be Tommy Jarvis, but they didn't have the rights to him, so they couldn't use him, so they made up a new character. I would have preferred it if it was Tommy Jarvis, maybe. There's nothing in the movie that I liked. It exists, and I did find while I was watching it, I was laughing because I was just so confused, but I mean, it just didn't really have anything. It seems like a metaphor for New Line hating Jason, which is kind of funny in and of itself, but
yeah, and that's why like it's problematic when you get the rights to a series, but you're not allowed to use the title of the series.
Yeah.
So after New Line got it, they weren't allowed to call it Friday the 13th, which is baffling. So that's why it's just straight up called Jason Goes to Hell, and why the next one is Jason X, and it's so strange. But yeah, so Jason Goes to Hell. No, Jason Goes to the F tier is where that one's. So going back to Sean, talking about Jason 10 or X, whatever you want to call it.
So I have this is a nostalgia one for me. I'll probably have it higher than most. This is the first one I saw in the theaters, and I have such fond memories of going with a bunch of my most obnoxious friends to see it at a Dollar Theater. Actually, you might know where this theater it was. It's the Dollar Theater near Wells Branch. It's now like a CVS.
Yes, it's a Walgreens. Yes,
Walgreens,
I saw Scream there at that location. So those of y'all who don't know, me and Sean are both in the Austin area. We've grown up here pretty much our entire lives. So yeah,
same school district too, as we kind of discovered last night. And so different times we've all been in the same specific areas. Like you live right now around where I grew up, and then I've been all over the place. But anyway, so I saw it there, had such fond memories of it. It's a dumb movie. It's an unbelievably stupid movie that knows it's a stupid movie and embraces that and just goes for it. So you've got Jason freezing people's heads and smashing them on tables, recreating the sleeping bag kill. We got Uber Jason. Someone gets thrown on a big screw and they got screwed. I mean, it's so stupid. There's a girl that's a robot android thing with guns. It's so over the top. It's bad, but for me, it does loop around enough to become so bad it's good. C tier for me.
Lego.
Okay, I know most people would probably assume I would put this in S tier, but no.
That's what I'm thinking.
I'm not. This is a D tier movie for me. I infamously love They're So Bad They're Good movies. This is just one that to me isn't so bad it's good. I just find it's too good to be it's so bad it's good. So it just comes around to being very bleh, it's fine. There's worse movies, there's better movies. I don't like any of the characters, and I think that's kind of the problem. I think it is funny that Jason basically got shot to death by a sex robot. But I mean, that's really the only fun scene.
She's not a sex robot.
She's a sex bot. I do like that nanotechnology basically made him cyborg Jason. That's kind of funny, I guess, but I just ultimately didn't like it. David Cronenberg studying him. I don't know. The movie's strange. It's very strange. I think it's better than some of the movies here, but worse than a lot of others. I don't know. It's fine. It's just a D tier to me. Maybe if I were a little older and had like grown up with it, or like seen it when it came out, rather.
Hey, what are you saying about us? You calling us old? What's going on here?
Lego is a little bit younger than us.
Yeah, I just don't have nostalgia for it. That will come at a later film.
That's like when you watch like a movie like this. Just imagine you're in a theater. Everybody knows what they're watching. Everybody knows they're watching this Jason in space. And so that's just a ball right there.
I mean, I probably saw this movie when I was like 10 and I'd seen the other ones and it had been out a few years at that point. And I was watching them, I don't get this. And so it's just never been a movie that I enjoy.
So I will preface my opinion of this movie. First of all, when I first saw this movie would have easily been like an F tier for me. I have changed my opinion since, but I do want to point out, think of any movie, horror franchise specifically, where they go to outer space. None of those have ever been good movies. None of them have been anywhere near the top echelon of the movies. And I'm primarily thinking Leprechaun and Hellraiser. Both the movies that they did of those where they've had some kind of outer space moment in it. The Hellraiser one specifically, Bloodline, jumps around between the past, the present, future, whatever. All of them are terrible. And they all feel very similar to this, like in the look. The look of this movie, I feel like, reminds me of like a late 90s sci-fi, whether it was like Stargate or what else was like a popular late 90s that wasn't Star Trek. Star Trek kind of felt like that as well, but it was like a very generic, like Battlestar Galactica type of feel to it. So it feels like they're playing with plastic guns, for example, or like they were red guns that were painted silver to look like guns. That is that kind of quality level that I feel like we get out of this. The CGI is terrible in this. The characters I hate everybody in this movie except Rowan. The lead girl, Lexa Doeg, who was in the first season of the Chucky series as well. I like her character. She was good. But the rest of the characters in this, God, I wish he could have just killed off everyone except her. And that would have been phenomenal. But what was the other thing about that? The creative kills. The liquid nitrogen, of course, is like a standout classic kill on that one. And then I think what really saves this movie is that whole holographic scene where he's like in the Star Trek holodeck thing where they recreate Crystal Lake. Sadly, I think that's the best use of him doing the whacking the sleeping bag up against a tree. And we only get like one shot of it or whatever. But I think it like just that little bit, it's like 2-3 minutes long, and it gets straight to the point with the two girls. They get naked. They're like, you want to smoke some pot? You want to have premarital sex? And that's it. That's all you need to know about the Friday the 13th is right there in that 2 minutes. But yeah, Uber Jason is insane. Just, it's fun now. This is like it's so bad it's good. I do call it a D. Still not my favorite. So we've got a C and 2 Ds. The D that we have in there right now, A New Beginning, I believe that one we had as a C, D, and F. So I guess it just kind of really depends. Do we want to put Jason X above A New Beginning? Because it would...
I would put it after.
Put it after A New Beginning? All right. And with that, we are done with the main franchise. That is all of the main franchise of Friday the 13th. So now we're moving on to the extraneous ones, starting with Sean. Freddy versus Jason.
Freddy versus Jason. This is another nostalgia one for me. Coming a year or two after Jason X, I had so much fun watching that movie in the theater. Wait, they're doing Freddy versus Jason. I was there opening night, packed theater, and I just had a blast with this film. I thought they did a really good job of merging the two mythologies. They're not really all that compatible, and they did about as good of a job as you can do coming up with an excuse on why the two merge together, having excuses to why they start to duke it out, and having stuff for each of the two of them to do. It's self-aware. I like the Ronnie Yu visual style that he kind of brings to it, and especially when you kind of go back and compare this to the 80s films. This just feels like such a slicker production. Even comparing it to Jason X, like the quality of production in the 2 years is dramatically better, and so it's got all sorts of stuff I enjoy about it. This is A tier for me.
Lego.
All right, S tier. I still wasn't old enough to see this one in the theater. I really wish I could have. Such a fun movie. They did such a great job of merging these mythologies and making the timelines work really well. Where we left off canonically in Jason Goes to Hell, we see Freddy's clawed hand grabbing it. This takes place like 3 months after that. It works really well. And it takes place the year it came out. Way to go. The characters are fine. They're red shirts. They're meant to be killed off. I don't care that much. The making Freddy this kind of manipulative predator, which he's always been, but preying on Jason to get him to use him to help him so he can kill more people, works really well. Like, I really believe that Jason would go along with this. Like, all right, I don't know. I guess he hitchhiked from New Jersey to Ohio. I don't know how he got there, but he did. And he's like, yeah, I'll go kill some teenagers somewhere else. That's fine. We've seen him do this before. It doesn't have to be Crystal Lake. He's open to geographic interpretation. And how they drugged him and got him, again, like a 9-hour car ride back to New Jersey, I don't know. But I'll go with it. What was up with that weird little Alice in Wonderland Freddy turning into a worm and possessing that dude, like in Jason Goes to Hell? I don't know, but I'm here for it. It's entertaining. I really respect that they were able to make this work. And it took them 15 years in production to finally get a script that was workable for both. And I just think that's very impressive. I like Ken Kreuziger as Jason. I think he did a really great job. And I do like... Oh,
and he was in part 8, too.
Yes, he was. And I do like the continuation in the comic books of Ash from Ash versus the Evil Dead, Freddy and Jason. I thought they picked that up really well, too. Yeah, S tier for me.
Okay. I'm not a huge fan of this film. No, okay, let me re-say this. The movie is entertaining. I enjoy watching it. I will watch it again. It just doesn't rank that high for me, mainly because the acting is terrible. The CGI, especially the caterpillar worm thing that Freddy turns into, every single time I see that, I was like, this looks like crap. Why couldn't they get the CGI just a little bit better? Some of the kills are just eh. I do agree. The storyline of Freddy using Jason to reinstill fear so he'll get strong enough that he can come back, that's a great idea. The nods to both of their respective franchises are great. Even going so far as bringing back Hypnosil so they could suppress their dreams to keep Freddy from coming back. That was a great nod and throwback. I love how they did that. But PLD really hates me in the chat now. Robert Christopher George McFly Adams, how dare you?
Great name.
That's a great name. Yeah. I'm not doing the George McFly Crispin Glover dance though. But yeah. Yeah, so, and I see, there was bad CGI in Jason X as well. But yeah, that took me out of it. But what I feel like is the major saving grace, the fight in this, all like the couple of times that Freddy and Jason actually fight, they're done so well. They're choreographed very well. It's a token to Ronnie Yu, who is really good at choreographing fights and knows what he wants to see in fight scenes. I think he got this job right after doing Bride of Chucky, which was kind of weird. You go from killer dolls to the two killer horror icons fighting each other. But yeah, I have fun with it. I don't like the supposedly ambiguous ending that there really isn't a full-on answer as to who would win between Freddy versus Jason. I mean, Freddy's head is still alive and winking at us, so who knows? I do have this as a C. So A, S, and C. So that would put it probably bottom of A. So what we can do is, if y'all want to bump the final chapter up to S, we could bump final chapter up to S, and then stick move the original up to the top of A, and then stick Freddy versus Jason after it.
That works for me.
Sound good, Sean?
All right.
That's what makes these fun, like when someone just has like maybe a wildly different opinion. I get why people a lot of love for Freddy vs. Jason. We did the Nightmare on Elm Street tier ranking, and I think it was the same way with that. The people who were on there were highly speaking of Freddy vs. Jason. I was like, it's all right. Not my favorite, but... All right, so going with Lego, the final movie on our list is the Friday the 13th, 2009 remake.
Okay, finally one I was able to see in the theater, though I did have to talk my older brothers to taking me. Okay. I have a lot of nostalgia for this one. I think they did a really good job of taking the first 4 films and condensing them into one, because you want to get to the iconic visual of what this franchise is, and that is Jason in a hockey mask. We have Jared Padalecki. I mean, Supernatural was in season 4 or 5 at that point, who was, big TV star. And I've watched that show, so I thought that was cool. All the other characters I was kind of meh on, except from the chick from Sky High. That was kind of funny to include her. And she dies, which is hilarious. I didn't see that coming. I just think it's so funny that the guy playing Jason, Derek Mears, I think he's like 6'5". But what's great about the casting of Jared Padalecki is that he's like 6'6". So you're basically having these two like massive human beings fight each other, and it ends up being like a cool little kaiju battle in a Friday the 13th movie. You don't expect it. I mean, most of the characters are kind of jerks, but the friendship between like Lawrence and Chewie, I thought was pretty endearing. And we see Jason go through like all the steps. He sees his mom get decapitated. We see him in the burlap sack, and then we see him get the mask, and then we see him maybe die, but then they have the weird dream sequences like the earlier films did. So it's like maybe he didn't die. Who knows? Open to interpretation. They didn't make a sequel. So however you want to believe it happened. He killed 13 people in the movie, which I thought was funny. Yeah, it's just it's a fun movie. It's very of its time. It was made by a lot of the same crew who did the remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you can really tell because they have a very specific style. I just think it's a fun movie, and I like that the brother and the sister live, because Jared Padalecki's character Clay is basically Rob from Part 4, and he's here to find his missing sister, and they both made it out, which is, I think, fun. Maybe. Or Jason killed them. Who knows? Who's to say? Yes, I absolutely love this film. I think it's a really great, of all of the let's remake this 80s slasher movie, I think this is one of the better ones, because they had a lot more to overcome, because the main killer isn't actually in the OG film. So I would put this in, I would put it, I guess, after Freddy vs. Jason.
So put it in A, but
A or B, depending on how we want to move things. Just wherever it'd be right below.
Yeah.
Freddy vs. Jason.
So my opinion of this movie, I'll go ahead and be the one to say it. This movie has great nipple placement. Just some of the lines in this movie, specifically, I'm gonna harp.
The lines
specifically,
are stupendous.
Yeah, specifically from the character of Trent. Which, side note, it's the same character that he played in Transformers. So for some reason, we desperately needed to connect Transformers to the Friday the 13th franchise. Why? I don't know.
Listen, man.
I want to see Optimus Prime take on Jason. I think that would be hilarious. So, other than that, I agree. The ability to, do a remake of a very beloved franchise, even though our ranking here may not show that it's very well beloved, it is. To combine the first 4 movies into one movie, I thought was great. Especially making the overarching story Clay looking for his sister, which was funny because after I watched this movie and I went back to watch the original ones, I completely forgot that was actually in the final chapter, that there was a brother looking for his sister who was killed in the second movie, I believe. She was the one that was killed in the bed with the dude on top of her. So I like that they managed to do all of the movies, including like a small little bit of just Mrs. Voorhees at the beginning, which was what's her face from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Kira Nerys is the character. Nana Visitor. Yeah.
Yes.
So I kind of like that. That was one I had to go back after I learned that. I was like, wait, that was Kira. Oh, okay. And I'm not even like a big Star Trek nerd or anything. Sorry, Sean.
How dare you?
I know. But like, I'm interested enough in it that like I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, the storyline in this, I feel like this is like the tightest, most streamlined story out of all the Friday the 13th movies. This is easily one of my favorites. I do have it just because I do like the OG and I think it was final chapter a little bit more. I do have this as an A.
I'll take everything you guys say and agree with it, except I like it even more than you guys. I have this one S tier. I feel like this one takes all the best pieces of these movies and just gives it 21st century slickness, but it's pulling from all the best ones. And like I said, with 6, the movie has, with Jared looking for his sister, gives a very clear objective, someone that knows something's up and has a goal that they're working towards, that just kind of gives you forward momentum in the story. The Jason feels dangerous when he's around you, because he's just so brutal and hulking. And then it's just enough self-awareness, just enough humor in it. So just everything that I want from these movies. Just like I said, keep saying the best of all of it. So for me, this one is S tier, and then bonus points because it was shot right around here, and so the barn where he gets his mask is 10 minutes from my house.
Oh, okay.
And much like with Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, that was also shot right here as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Marcus Nispel really likes shooting in the outside of Austin, which like Austin is a proper city once you're in like within the city, but the second you get like even 5 minutes outside of like the city limits, you're in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, they very much love that shooting location. So we've got A, S, and then Lego, you're like teetering on like B plus or A minus.
I'm okay with putting it above Freddy vs. Jason.
Okay. So I think that's what's going to happen is Freddy vs. Jason's going to bump down, and we're going to put this where it is at. And that's going to be all 12. So I'll read off. We got a couple. I got another Streamlabs in here from Troy McClure. So thank you for that, Troy. I will read those off and PLDs here in a second. And then we'll also do plugs and talk about what is coming up next for the Marquee for the next episode. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But until then, that's the 12 that we got. Do we want to make any final change arounds? Anything that we want to argue or...
Yeah, I don't. It's reasonable to me. Yeah, it's within the ballpark of that's fair.
Lego, you're happy with that as also?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay. So that will be our list there. So I'm going to clean this up. I'll get it posted up on Twitter tomorrow so everyone else can have their say at it. Whether you agree, disagree, feel free to comment on it, share it, retweet it, however you would like. Anyways, so with that up, I'm going to go ahead and read the rankings we got. So PLD submitted his rankings. PLD has this as, let me see. He's got, I'm going to start with the S tier. So his 2 S tiers are New Blood and Jason Lives. So, okay. I mean, Jason Lives. Jason Lives seems like that's always going to be probably in everybody's S tier for the most part. Yeah. He's got A tier. He's got Final Chapter and Freddy versus Jason. For B tier, he's got Jason X and the remake. For C tier, he's got the original and part 2. D tier is part 3 and Jason Takes Manhattan, part 8. And F tier, he's got Friday, New Beginning, so part 5, and Jason Goes to Hell, which all of that sounds like that should be pretty accurate as well. Troy's got his, so he's got, let me see, I'm guessing this is in order of, so it looks like it's in like S tier on the way down. So S tier's got part 4 and 6. Again, seemingly that's everyone's agreement. For A tier, he's got Freddy vs. Jason and the remake. B tier is 3 and 2. C tier is 7 and 1. D tier is 5 and 9. So, New Beginning and Jason Goes to Hell. And then F tier, you've got, looks like Jason X and Jason Takes Manhattan. So, those are all pretty, I feel like everyone's like roughly within the same realm as like our opinions of these movies. Everyone seems to have a very general consensus on what we believe these movies should be ranked at. So, that being said, let's go back and let's remove the marquee and have Carl remove that. Carl, take it down, please. Oh, it's all the same thing, just backwards. So, that is our rankings of these movies. Let's see. So, before we end tonight, go ahead and do plugs. Lego, if you would like to start with plugs.
Sure. I can be found on the interwebs, specifically YouTube, under Legoland13, which is spelled down there, and probably also in the description should be a link. I make videos on weird things, mostly doing deep dive analyses into horror films. I was trying to do one on Friday the 13th. I have it saved. Didn't have time to upload it. So that'll exist tomorrow if anyone is interested in a deep dive of, does this timeline make sense? How many people has Jason killed? How many people did he compared to the other people who were also murdering in this franchise? What's his percentage? How well did he do? What grade is he getting? Who knows? Also, did I lose my mind trying to figure out the timeline? Watch and find out.
Very likely, yeah. Sean, where can people find you? Where are you located?
Well, you can look up Sean Chandler, and either you will find a guy that looks like me talking about movies, or you will find an NFL player. It's the guy that looks like me and that talks about movies. And tomorrow I got a video dropping where I ranked all 52 movies that have made over $1 billion. So I'll be up late finishing editing that. But that one was a bear to film and edit. But so that'll be a lot of fun. That drops tomorrow. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, awesome. As for us, stick around for, let's say, I believe it's going to be in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to drop one more marquee for this month. It's going to be what's now an annual thing. It will be just me and my brother. We will be talking about what 2023 movies we are heavily anticipating. The fun thing with this is we did this last year on the marquee, and I've got that list saved up. What we're going to do is we're going to bring up that list and see, like, well, were we right to be anticipating Morbius so much? Probably not. So we're going to have a little fun, like, in hindsight, going through that list and see what movies did we anticipate that we absolutely loved, and what movies did we very much anticipate that we probably shouldn't have had. And then, of course, we're going to be going through all the movies that we know of that are coming out this year, and we'll be ranking which ones we highly anticipate. So that's 2 weeks from tonight. Make sure you subscribe, follow us, hit that notification so you know whenever we drop a video or when we're going to go live. You can follow us at Cinefanatics MLP on Twitter and Instagram. Make sure you like and comment on, or like and subscribe here tonight as well. And yeah, you can follow me at Robert Adams MLP on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Also, youtube.com/@RobertAdamsMLP, where I may stream or make a video at some point as well. I do have plans for this year for that channel also. Otherwise, thank everyone who has been in the chat tonight. Thank y'all all for being here. We very much appreciate you watching, and also very much appreciate our guests, Lego and Sean. Thank y'all for being here. Mm-hmm. Thank you for adding to this. This was a lot of fun. I was eagerly anticipating this ranking specifically. So thank y'all for making it such a blast. Otherwise, again, thank y'all for watching. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and we'll see y'all in 2 weeks for the next one. Bye-bye. Goodbye.